I matched with him on a dating app. I don't usually use those kinds of apps, and I'd been on exactly 3 dates from them before this one. The first guy was way too clingy, the second one barely said 2 words, and the third one seemed normal but ghosted me the next day. After those, I almost deleted the app, but then I came across his profile. His name was Mark. He had a friendly smile in his pictures, nothing flashy. A couple hiking photos, one of him holding a dog, which turned out not to be his, I'd later find out, and one casual shot of him at a bar with friends. His bio was simple too. He said he worked in IT, liked coffee, enjoyed movies and road trips. Honestly, compared to the other guys with shirtless bathroom mirror selfies or lines like, "looking for a partner in crime," he seemed refreshingly normal. We messaged back and forth for a week before he asked me out. His texts were easy, funny, and he didn't push for anything weird. I suggested coffee, but he said he wanted to take me somewhere nicer. Dinner. That should have been a red flag. Coffee is safe, casual, easy to escape from. Dinner is a commitment. But I convinced myself it meant he was serious, that he was willing to invest actual effort instead of half-heartedly grabbing a latte and never speaking again. He offered to pick me up. I said no at first. My mom's voice in my head telling me never to let a stranger know my exact address. But he kept insisting, saying it would be gentlemanly, that it would save me gas. He asked where I lived, and I gave him the name of my apartment complex, not my unit. I figured I could meet him outside and keep a little distance. The night of the date, I put on a black dress, curled my hair, did my makeup carefully, but not too heavy. I wanted to look nice but not desperate. I stood outside waiting as the sky turned pink and the parking lot lamps flicked on. He pulled up in a black sedan, shiny, spotless. The windows were tinted darker than I liked, but when he rolled down the passenger side window and leaned across to smile at me, I felt a little flutter of excitement. "Hey, beautiful," he said. His voice was smooth, lower than I expected. "You look amazing." I slid into the passenger seat. The car smelled faintly of cologne, leather, and something else. Something faintly chemical, like disinfectant. We drove to a restaurant downtown, one I'd been to once before for a work dinner. It wasn't too fancy, but it was nicer than anywhere I usually went on first dates. He opened the door for me, pulled out my chair, all those things you see in movies. At first, it felt like one of those rare good dates. He asked questions, listened to my answers, cracked a few jokes that made me laugh out loud. The food was good, the wine was better, and I started to think maybe, just maybe, this could be something real. But then there were little things. When I mentioned my sister, he asked what apartment complex she lived in. When I talked about my job, he asked for the address of my office. Not in a casual way. He wanted specifics. At first, I thought maybe he was just making conversation, but the way he pressed, nodding intently when I answered, left me uneasy. When I excused myself to the bathroom, my phone buzzed. A text from him. "You're even prettier when you walk away." I stared at it for a second, confused. How had he typed that so fast? I'd barely left the table. When I got back, he smiled at me like nothing was weird. After dinner, I expected we'd just head back, but he suggested a drive. "The night's young," he said. "I know a quiet spot with a great view." I hesitated. Every cell in my body told me it was a bad idea, but something about his tone, light, casual, expectant, made me feel like saying no would turn the mood sour. I didn't want to seem paranoid. "Sure," I said. We drove for a while. At first, it was fine. City lights blurring past, his music low on the stereo. But then we turned off the main road. The neighborhoods thinned into empty lots, then trees. The street lamps grew farther apart. I glanced at the dashboard clock. It was after 10. "Where exactly are we going?" I asked. He smiled without looking at me. "You'll see. You'll love it." The road narrowed, potholes bumping under the tires, my hands clenched in my lap. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Maybe we should just head back. I work early tomorrow." He didn't answer right away, just kept driving, eyes on the road, knuckles tight on the wheel. Then he said, "Don't worry, we're almost there." Something in his tone shifted. The smooth charm was gone. It was flatter, harder. Finally, he pulled off onto a gravel turnout and killed the engine. The woods pressed in dark around us, the silence so heavy it made my ears ring. "This is it," he said. I looked out the window. There was no view, just trees and blackness. I forced a laugh. "Okay, funny. You're messing with me, right?" He turned in his seat to face me fully. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "You really are beautiful," he said softly. "Prettier than your pictures." My pulse hammered. My hand inched toward the door handle. That's when I noticed it. There was no lock button. Not on my door, not on his. The sleek panel where it should have been was smooth. I tried to lift the little nub where the lock usually is, but it didn't budge. He watched me, eyes glinting. "You're not going anywhere." My stomach dropped. I yanked at the handle anyway. Nothing. It didn't open. He leaned closer. I like when they try it first. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. I shifted, pretending to adjust my dress, and my hand slid into my purse, my phone. Before I could grab it, he reached across me and snatched the bag, tossing it into the back seat. His arm brushed against me, heavy, deliberate. "You won't need that." I froze. My heart was slamming so loud I thought he could hear it. "Mark," I said carefully, forcing my voice to sound calm. "This isn't funny." He tilted his head. "Who said I was joking?" I thought about screaming, but the woods were empty, the road dead. Nobody would hear. So I smiled, a shaky, forced smile, but a smile. "You're right," I said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." Something flickered in his eyes. A pause. That pause was everything. I lunged for the steering wheel, slammed my palm on the horn, long and loud, the blare cutting through the silence of the night. His face twisted. He grabbed my wrist, but I twisted, kicking at the glove box, screaming now, the horn still blaring. "Shut up," he shouted, his voice breaking. I thrashed harder, nails digging into his arm, knee jerking into his ribs. The horn echoed again, sharp and frantic. Then headlights appeared. A truck coming down the road, its beams cutting through the trees. Mark froze. His grip loosened just enough. I shoved the door with all my strength, and this time it opened. I stumbled out onto the gravel, skinning my knee, and ran toward the truck, waving my arms. The truck screeched to a stop. The driver, a middle-aged man, leaning out the window with a confused shout. Behind me, I heard the slam of Mark's door. Gravel crunched as he bolted back into his car. By the time I turned, his taillights were already disappearing into the trees. The truck driver called the cops. They took my statement, but all I could give them was his first name, his car, the dating app profile that, by the time I checked, was already deleted. They never found him. For weeks after, I jumped at every sound outside my window. I checked under my car before getting in. I double-locked my door at night. And sometimes when I'm walking to my apartment, I get this feeling, like someone's waiting in a dark sedan just past the edge of the lot, watching. When I agreed to go on the date, I thought I was being careful. I'd been single for about a year, finally convinced by my friends to try the apps again. I wasn't new to online dating, and I knew the rules. Meet in public, don't let them pick you up, share your location with someone you trust. I followed all of those rules, but it still went wrong. His name was Ryan. His profile didn't set off any alarms. No blurry bathroom selfies, no half-naked mirror shots, just a couple of outdoorsy pictures, a dog photo, and one where he was laughing with friends. His bio was short and boring, but boring seemed safer than the guys who tried too hard. We matched on a Wednesday and talked for a few days. He was funny in a dry way, not pushy, not overly flirty. He asked me out for coffee first, but I couldn't make the day he suggested. He countered with dinner at a place downtown. It was casual, a taco place I liked, and I said yes. The plan was simple. I'd drive myself, park near the restaurant, and meet him inside. The first weird thing happened when I walked in. I recognized him immediately, but he didn't match his photos perfectly. He was a little heavier, his hairline receding more than in the pictures. Not a deal breaker. I wasn't expecting perfection. What struck me was the way he looked at me. He didn't smile right away, just stared, like he was memorizing me. "Hey, you made it," he finally said. I laughed awkwardly and nodded. Of course. Dinner was fine at first. The tacos were good, the drinks were strong, and the conversation flowed okay. But he kept circling back to certain topics. My apartment, my neighborhood, what floor I lived on, whether I lived alone. I deflected, but he was persistent. At one point, he leaned across the table and said, "You smell really good." "What perfume is that?" I wasn't wearing perfume. I told him it was just lotion, and his smile widened like I'd given him some secret. Halfway through, he excused himself to the bathroom. I used the break to text my friend, "Not sure about this guy. A little off. We'll update later." She sent back a thumbs up and a "be safe." When he came back, he seemed agitated. His knee bounced under the table, and he kept glancing at the window. "You don't seem like you're enjoying yourself," he said suddenly. I blinked. "I am. Why? You keep looking at your phone. Am I boring you?" His tone was sharp, accusing. My stomach tightened. "No, I was just checking in with a friend." His jaw clenched, then relaxed. "That's good. Smart." I laughed nervously. "Yeah, safety first." He stared at me for a beat too long before finally changing the subject. When the check came, I insisted on paying for my half. He didn't argue, just watched me pull out my card with that same unblinking expression. We walked out together, the night air cool and damp. I was already rehearsing a polite goodbye when he gestured to the parking lot. "Where'd you park?" "Oh, just a block over." "I'll walk you." "That's okay," I said quickly. "It's not far." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'll walk you." I didn't want to cause a scene in front of the restaurant, so I relented. The lot was nearly empty, street lamps buzzing overhead. My car was parked under one near the far end. I dug for my keys as we approached, trying to act casual. "Nice car," he said. "Bet it's fast." "It gets me where I need to go," I said, unlocking it. I expected him to say goodnight. Instead, he opened my back door and leaned inside. "Hey!" I snapped. "What are you doing?" He turned to me with a smile that made my skin crawl. "Just checking it out, making sure it's safe." "Get out." My voice shook, but I tried to sound firm. He straightened, still smiling. "Relax. I'm just kidding around." I slid into the driver's seat quickly, heart racing. He leaned down, resting his arm on the roof. His face was inches from mine through the open door. "You should let me take you home. Make sure you get there safe." "No, thanks," I said, gripping the wheel. "Good night, Ryan." His smile vanished. His eyes went flat, dark. "Fine." He stepped back, letting me close the door. I drove away as calmly as I could, but the second I hit the main road, I floored it. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the wheel. I checked the mirrors constantly, half expecting his car behind me. I didn't see it. When I got home, I double-locked my door, pulled the blinds, and collapsed on the couch. Relief washed over me. Until I saw the note. It was on my coffee table. A plain piece of paper, folded once. My chest tightened as I picked it up. In neat handwriting, it read, "Told you I'd make sure you got home safe." Here's the story. It started like any other first date, the kind I'd scrolled past online dozens of times before, dismissing the slightly off selfies or vague bios. But her profile had stood out, just enough charm without trying too hard. Maya, she called herself. She had sharp eyes, a quick smile, and a way of typing that made me think she might actually be interesting in person. I got there first, sitting at a corner table in the small Italian place she suggested. The restaurant was quiet for a Thursday night, just a few couples scattered across the room, soft jazz playing overhead. I checked my phone, trying not to seem too eager, and watched the door. When she walked in, I was immediately aware of how different she was from her pictures. Not in a bad way, just sharper, colder somehow, the way her eyes scanned the room like she was measuring everyone. She smiled at me, waved, and I felt that first flutter of relief that maybe she was normal. We ordered wine, talked about work, music, books. Small talk, mostly, the kind that feels like a warm-up for whatever is coming next. She laughed at the right moments, but there were flashes, small, almost imperceptible, that made my stomach knot. A hand lingering a bit too long on the chair across from me, the way she tilted her head, listening, but her eyes scanning the floor near my feet. After dinner, she suggested drinks at her place. I hesitated, normal first date instincts, but she was persuasive, casual, and somehow magnetic. "It's just a quick nightcap," she said. "You can see my vinyl collection." I agreed. Her apartment was a block away, an older building with narrow hallways and creaky stairs. She unlocked the door and ushered me in, immediately locking it behind me. I didn't notice at first. I assumed it was habit, safety paranoia. But then the door clicked again when she crossed the room, and I realized it locked automatically from the outside. My stomach tightened. The apartment itself was immaculate, too clean, the kind of place where every book was perfectly aligned and the furniture looked staged. She offered me a drink. I took a whiskey. She poured something from a dark bottle into her glass, didn't tell me what it was. I barely noticed the odd metallic smell, just a fleeting thought. We sat on the couch, talking, laughing. But the way she watched me, like I was some puzzle she was trying to solve, made my pulse quicken. Her hand brushed mine once, then lingered, and I pulled back slightly. She didn't comment, just smiled, a slow, unnerving smile. Small things started to feel off. The first red flag was the knives. She had a knife block on the counter, but one knife was missing. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she had been cooking. But then, when I excused myself to the bathroom, I noticed the way she had arranged her living room. The couch was positioned to give a perfect line of sight to the entrance. The chairs, the lamp, even the rug seemed deliberate, strategic. And there, on the coffee table, was the knife she had pulled from the block earlier, now lying in reach of where I would sit if I returned. When I came back, she was closer, leaning in, her smile too wide. "You seem tense," she said. I laughed nervously. "Just, first date nerves." She tilted her head, eyes sharp. "Are you sure?" The drink in my hand tasted off suddenly, bitter, almost metallic. My throat tightened, but I didn't want to make a scene. I set it down. Then she stood. "Come see something." She led me to her bedroom. That's when everything shifted. The air changed, heavier, the quiet outside gone. The hallway was narrow, claustrophobic. The door to her bedroom clicked shut behind us, again locking automatically. My pulse hammered. I tried to force it down to rationalize it. She was just quirky, maybe a little obsessive. But then she moved deliberately, and I saw it. The glint of something in her hand. A small knife. Not the one from the kitchen. Her smile was gone. "I thought you might like a little game," she said, voice low. I froze, heart in my throat. The kind of primal fear that seeps into your bones, the sudden certainty that this was not a joke, that she intended to hurt me. I backed toward the door. She stepped forward. "You're not going anywhere," she said, and I realized the locks were more than automatic. They were electronic, controlled by her. She had me trapped. I grabbed the nearest thing, a lamp, the heaviest she had, and swung. It connected with her arm. She yelped, dropped the knife. I didn't wait. I ran, but she lunged, knocking into me. We crashed against the bed frame, the knife skittering across the floor. I grabbed it, the cold steel cutting into my hand, and something inside me snapped. I fought, brutally, desperately. Every move was survival, instinct. She screamed, a sharp, high-pitched sound that still echoes in my mind. She came at me again. I sidestepped, stabbed instinctively. Not aiming for anything specific, just to stop her. She fell, groaning, clutching her arm. It was over as suddenly as it had started. I collapsed, gasping, adrenaline burning every nerve. The apartment was silent except for her wheezing, the distant hum of the city outside. I didn't wait. I ran for the door, wrenching it open, and bolted down the stairs, barefoot, ignoring the scrapes and bruises from the struggle. Outside, the night was cool, indifferent. I didn't stop until I reached my car. I called the police. She survived, barely, and I was questioned for hours. I told the truth. They understood. But nothing could erase the images, the feel of her knife in my hand, the sound of her voice when she smiled before attacking. Weeks later, I drove past her building. A single light burned in her window. I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. I knew she was out there, maybe plotting, maybe just existing, and a part of me wanted to scream. But the other part knew I had survived. Brutal, raw, and alive. It took months to sleep without flinching. Years later, I still wake up sometimes, drenched in sweat, hearing the metallic tang of fear on my tongue. First dates can be dangerous. People can be dangerous. And sometimes, survival doesn't come from reason or charm. It comes from a sudden, savage willingness to fight back with everything you have. I survived. She didn't get me. But some nights, I wonder if she even regrets it. And that, I think, is the worst part.